Hi, I'm going to cover a lot of ground in this lecture, so let me start out by giving you kind of an overview of what I'm going to talk about, then I'll get down to the details. So first of all, I'm going to be giving you your assignment, okay, and I've drawn a tree diagram down here to show the web pages that will be required and the order in which the web pages will need to be called up. So again, I'll go through the details of that here shortly. I'm going to show you how I drew this diagram and then how you can capture the diagram so that you can then convert it into a graphics file and insert it into a web page, so that's going to be one of the requirements, okay, for the sitemap page. And we're going to be using an HTML and CSS code generator. The one I'm going to use is Expression Web, if I can find it here. Where are you? Right there. Okay, so Expression Web is available as a free download from Microsoft's website. It's excellent tool, and it is free. So if you don't have a copy of it, you can go to Microsoft's website and get a copy. So when I use the code generator, I'm going to be generating both HTML and CSS code, and we're going to analyze, that program code because you need to know how CSS works, how to write the rules, how to call up the rules. And we'll look at CSS as it can be applied to a web page three different ways. Okay, so I can use inline, internal, and external CSS rules, and I'll explain the differences there. And along the way, I'm going to show you a few other things, including a little discussion of relative versus absolute file paths. Okay, so again, I'm going to look at some program code. I'm going to do some very quick demonstrations, not complete demonstrations, but enough to show you what you need to know for your project. And by the time we're finished with this, you should be ready to start on your project and then have it completed by July 6th at 5 minutes until midnight. Okay, so if we look at July 6th, that would be a week from Monday. Today's 25th. This will be due a week from Monday. Now, I should point out that I'm going to be having surgery on July 2nd, and I'm probably not going to feel too good. Hopefully I'm starting to come around again by Monday, but give me a few days. So if you write me, email me, or anything like that, there's a good chance I may not, respond immediately. All right. So enough of that, and let's get started. So the first thing I want to do is explain this diagram. Okay, so your project is going to require that you create 7 web pages, and I should point out also that this is iteration number 1. Okay, this is our first go at it, and we will continue to build upon this project throughout the course of the semester. So what you're going to have to do is create a web page for every single one of these rectangles that I show in the diagram. So each diagram represents a page. I have suggested some names. Okay, all of these pages need to end in either .htm or .html. I don't really care which. If you use Expression Web to create the pages, it will attempt to save it with a .html file name extension. It's perfectly fine, but you just need to know what your file name extension is in order to correctly hyperlink to it and so forth. All right, so how did I draw this diagram? Okay, and I've chosen to use a tree diagram, a hierarchical type diagram, because the idea is that you're going to have a website. There's going to be a gateway page to that website. So a user would be expected to go to your home page, your index page, and from there the index page will contain 3 hyperlinks. one to About Me, one to Sitemap, and one to JavaScript. So it'll contain a hyperlink to each of the 3 pages that are listed immediately below it. If you were to hyperlink from the home page to the About Me page and then choose one of 3 hyperlinks on that page, you would be able to link to your resume, a list of skills, and a bucket list. Okay, so we'll talk about the details of that here shortly. But there is in this diagram then a complete inventory of all the pages in your website. I've suggested names that you use. I'm using camel case notation in coming up with these names. Now, I could have, probably should have, put HTM or HTML at the end of each one of these, okay? But understand that, you know, the page names, the file names are being given, and you would be expected to put the correct file name extension on. Okay, so what's going to happen here? Well, again, you're going to create very little content on the index page. There ought to be some text that in some way, shape, or form welcomes the person to the website. You know, how you describe that, how you do that's really up to you. There should be hyperlinks that allow them to get to these 3 other pages. And then beyond that, if you want to put a picture, you know, whatever you want to do, I'm leaving that up to you to make it look stylish. Then you're going to have these next 3 pages, and let me just explain here what About Me would do. The About Me page, you know, likely would have a picture of you, and it is from there that you'll be able to link to your resume. And I would suggest that you use the resume template in Microsoft Word, and that actually it's an online template, I think, and we'll look at it here shortly. And then once you've created the resume in Word, save it as an HTML file. I'll show you how to do that, but you'll actually be creating this document in Word, and from Word saving it as an HTML file. All the other documents, so maybe I ought to choose a different fill color here. Okay, so I've highlighted this graphic, and I'm going to go to the format option on the menu bar, and I'm going to choose some other color. Okay, so I'll choose orange there. That makes it stand out. So that is colored in orange so that you're aware that you're going to create this page in a slightly different way. You're going to use Microsoft Word for this page and this page alone, and all the rest of the pages you can use Notepad, or you can use Expression Web. I would probably just use Expression Web. All right, so let's take a look at how I drew this diagram, and let's take a look at how the template, the resume template in Word looks. Okay, so I used Microsoft Word for both of these. On this current page, if I go to the Insert option on the menu bar, go to the Illustrations ribbon, and under Shapes, I've got a text box, and I'm really only using 2 tools. I'm using text box and lines. Okay, and so if I want to choose a text box, I put it on there like that. I can type some text in here. Here's some text. I can format that text. Okay, so really anything that I can do on the open document, I can do within a text box. So I can format it. I can change the color of the text. Okay, so I'll change that to red. Need to highlight that first, and then change it to, make sure I'm choosing red. One more time. Change it to red. Okay, so it's much harder than it looks, obviously. And then I can, you know, align it, do whatever I need to do. Now I've got a little squiggly under here. That's going to be problematic if you get one of these, so I would right click on this text if I ever get the chance, and I would ignore it, turn that squiggly off. Alright, so that's how you create the text box. You can draw it, you can type in it, and you can fill its back color. So once you've got focus on a text box, you get a format option on the menu bar, and on that format option you can choose some effects here, one of which is shape fill, and if I want to fill it a certain color, that's how I do it. Okay. And then the connecting lines, again, pretty simple and straightforward. Choose the tool, draw the line. Okay, and then everything down here is really just line segments, intersecting line segments. Alright, so I'm going to get rid of that and get rid of that. And what I'd like to do next, so that's a quick lesson on how to use the drawing tools in Word. What I'd like to do next is take a look at how do I edit this thing, because I'm going to need a picture of this to insert into a web page eventually. I'm going to draw the diagram, then I want to get just the illustration cropped from it and put into either a JPEG file or a PNG file. Okay, now I'm going to minimize here for just a second. I've got a number of things open, so bear with me. And I need to make sure I've got a folder set up. I do have a folder set up here on the desktop, so I just did a right click on the desktop, chose new folder, and I named it Kuntz Web Camel Case Notation. So camel case notation is going to be all the characters occurring one right after another, and where there would be the occurrence of a new word in this descriptor, you elevate that first character to uppercase, and it makes it very readable. So embedded spaces are really not a good thing to ever use in program code. A way of avoiding embedded spaces, yet making the descriptors readable, is to use camel case notation. So I have this file set up, and I now want to go back to the Word document. I've drawn my diagram, and what I'd like to do is get a picture of it. Now, you have a zoom slider in Word, so if you want the diagram enlarged, you can do that. If you want it reduced in size, you can do that. So get it scaled to whatever size you want. And then on a PC, you'll probably hold down on the function and print screen key in combination. So if you have a PC laptop, that's the way you're going to execute a print screen to capture everything that's being displayed on the screen. If you're using a standard PC desktop, you don't use the function key in combination. You just strike the print screen key, and that's typically a key labeled PRT SCN maybe, and it's in the upper right part of the keyboard. If you're using a Mac, as I am, and I'm using a MacBook that has been partitioned into both a partition for Windows and a partition for the Mac OS, and when I use Windows and when I need to get a screenshot, I have to jump through a bigger hoop. I have to hold down on the function key, the shift key, and the F11 key in combination. And when you do, it seemingly does nothing. Okay, but having executed that function shift F11 command, if I then go to a graphics editor, and I'll launch Paint and scale my window, actually it doesn't really matter too much whether you scale this canvas size down. Won't hurt if it's undersized. But then if you execute a Control V or a paste command, it's going to transfer everything from the clipboard onto the screen, and you can drag up, and once you've got this diagram visible, you can use the select tool and very carefully lasso the portion of the page that you want to save as a graphic, execute a Control X, which will cut. It's going to take the selected portion, remove it from the current document, put it on the clipboard. Now I'm done with this current canvas, so I'm going to go to the File pull-down menu and choose New. It's going to ask whether I want to save, and I'm going to say Don't Save. It brings up a new canvas, and I'm going to, on an undersized canvas, execute a Control V, and it will paste that cropped portion of my previous page, just the diagram in this case. It will paste it into a new canvas, and it'll make the canvas, if you start out with an undersized canvas, it'll make the canvas as large as it needs to, but no larger, so you won't get an excessive amount of white space around the edge. And I'm going to save it, and I'm going to save it on the desktop, in this case, in the folder that I have set up for my project, the Kuntz Web folder. I'll open that up, and I'm going to name this DIAG, as in diagram, website. So it's going to be a diagram of my website. I can save it in a PNG file format, or I tend to favor JPEG. Either one are good file types to use. I'll save it, and I'll come back probably and tell you, a little bit more about those two file types, why one might be preferred over another, and so forth. But I've saved that in a JPEG file format, and I'm done with the graphics editor with Paint, so I'm going to close it up. I'm going to right click over here on the clock, and I'll get a pop-up menu where I can show desktop. So instantly it's going to take me back out here, and there you have it. There's the file stored in the folder Kuntz Web. Okay, so there's my graphics file ready to be used. Alright, so you see how to draw it, you see how to edit it, you see how to save it as a file. So now let's take a look at how would I use Expression Web and insert this picture and that kind of thing. So let me do that. I'm going to access Expression Web. I've already got one page open, but I'm going to create a new page, and I'm not sure what the difference between a page and HTML is, so I'm going to go ahead and use HTML. I'm going to look down at the bottom left corner. There's a designer window. There's nothing on the screen yet, but if I click on the code window, I see the bare minimum amount of code, and this is defaulting to the previous HTML standard, which was called XHTML. Okay, and I don't want that. I want to use HTML5. So in the doc type tag, I'm going to get rid of everything that you see highlighted, and my doc type tag should look like that. I'm going to go to the HTML tag, and I'm going to get rid of everything except the keyword HTML. It should look like that. I'm going to go to the meta tag down here, and that's trying to use the UTF-8 character set, which is a good thing to use from the standpoint of it providing the capability of displaying a broader range of graphics, but this is written to the XHTML standard, so you have these singular tags like meta tags, image tag, there's a list of them, break tag, and the XHTML standard was that if it's a singular tag, it is to end with space slash. The HTML5 standard is it ends with just a right angle brace. So I would, clean that up. In the title section, I'm going to add a meaningful title that will appear in the title bar of the web page. It could also be used in searches. So the title I'm going to put in here is, since I'm going to be creating a sitemap that is based upon an image map, I'm going to put in image map example. And go back here to the design window. Now, this is all the code there is at this point. I'm going to start generating code like crazy though. Okay, so I'm going to put in a heading up here, and I'll just put in sitemap. And I'm going to highlight the heading. I'm going to change the size to 36 point, which will theoretically be half-inch text. I'm going to change the font to something exotic like Arial, and I'm going to reset that size to 36 again. Okay, and I'm going to center it. Okay, looks nice. I interacted with the designer window very much the way I would, do if I were creating a word processing document in Word. But with everything that I communicated, this code generator has been creating CSS, Cascading Style Sheet, and it has created a internal CSS rule. Okay, so I told you that there are 3 types of CSS. You have inline, internal, and external. So it just created, this editor will generate internal CSS. Okay, so going back to what I was doing, the internal CSS is stored in the head section. There's my head section. Within it is a style section. Okay, and within the style section right now there is currently one CSS rule that begins with a class selector. So that header at the top is a class selector. Then an open and closing brace create the block in which the CSS rule is contained. So this CSS rule consists of 3 properties, and the property name is a reserved word. So there is a reserved word called font-family, and the value of that property in this case is Arial, Helvetica, and sans serif. So the browser will attempt to create text in this form, okay, and using Arial. If the Arial is not available, then I'll use Helvetica and so forth. And it's going to make the font a certain size. So again, a reserved word that's used to specify the height, the size of the font. And then I have a third reserved word, text align, and I have possible values of left, right, and center. Okay, and those 3 properties and corresponding property values are what is defined by this rule, auto style. And again, that is internal CSS. It was generated by a code generator. It is stored in the head section. I could have another rule. Okay, so I could, if I wanted to Control C and add another rule, I can either interact with the designer screen or I can code this thing myself. So if I wanted to change that to 48 point down here, I could, and here I might call this head style 1 and change this to head style 2. Alright, now if I do that and flip back to the designer screen, all my formatting is gone. The content's there, but the formatting's gone. It's no longer 36 point, it's no longer centered, and so forth. So what happened? Well, I changed the class selector, the name of the rule, and then if I look down here in the body section, that rule gets called up and applied to a paragraph by the paragraph using this class attribute. So I invoke the rule through a class attribute, and this class attribute is still showing the old class name, the name that was assigned by Expression Web that wasn't particularly descriptive. If I change that to head style 1 and then flip back to the design page, now I get what I was expecting. So if you change the class selector, you have to then change the value of the class attribute wherever that is being applied. And in this case, the rule is being applied to the paragraph that begins with the opening paragraph tag, that ends with the closing paragraph tag. And so whether that is 20 lines of text or whether it is 3 words of text, it's all going to be treated as a single unit, and that style is going to be applied to everything, multiple sentences or just a few words. Hopefully that makes sense. So there's an example of internal CSS, and this generates, Expression Web generates both HTML and CSS, so it becomes a very good tool to learn with. Alright, so that much is done. Let me flip back here to my notes and see what I have. Let me create an inline rule, and then we'll look at how I create external rules. Okay, so how about an inline rule? If I go back here and in the designer window, go to the format option and choose background. First of all, let me do this. Let me show you what the opening body tag looks like currently. It looks like that. Okay, just the keyword body between left and right angle braces. Now, I'm going to go to the designer window, and I'm going to choose format, background, and I'm going to change the background color to silver. Okay, and then say OK to that. It's changed the background of the page to silver. If I look at the code, it has created a rule, but it has embedded that rule in the body tag. That's known as inline CSS. Now, in terms of scope, an inline CSS rule, as like the one I have highlighted there, applies just to what is being governed by that tag. Okay, so in this case, it'll apply it to the entire page. But if I put an inline rule in a paragraph tag, then it will apply that rule only to that paragraph. And if I want to do the same thing in a second paragraph or another paragraph elsewhere, I have to rewrite the rule. So one of the things that you should learn very quickly in a programming class is that you want to minimize, in fact you would like to avoid ever duplicating program code, because it becomes error prone, and if you ever need to perform maintenance on it, change something, then you end up having to change things in multiple locations. So it would be much preferred if you could write the rule once and call it up over and over again. In the case of internal CSS, I can do that. Okay, so I could write this rule right here and then call it up any number of times that I want to. I can put it in paragraphs, I can put it in a variety of different tags, but I can write the rule once and call it up over and over again within this page. So the scope is of internal CSS is limited to the page in which it appears. I can use that head style 1 rule over and over again, but I can only use it within this page, and I call it up again in the body section on paragraph tags, div tags, span tags. There's a number of tags that I can use to invoke it, but I invoke the rule using a class attribute. All right, now this rule right here could be copied. Okay, so if I start with the closing double quote and go clear through the opening double quote and do a Control C and copy that, then I could come up and type in maybe something like dot back color an opening brace and Control V. I paste that rule in. I got to clean it up just a little bit. All right, so background color, and then we'll talk about what all that means here in a little bit. It's hexadecimal notation. All right, so there we have the color defined. And if I go to the design page, go back to the code page. All right, so if I go to the code page, and now I take that internal rule and get rid of it in the body, go to the design page, I've lost that silver background color. But if on the body tag I create, where are you, body tag? On the body tag, if I create a class attribute and if I name it back color, if the value of the class attribute matches the name of a rule, then it can call up that rule, and there I am applying that rule again. So I just transformed that that inline CSS rule to an internal CSS rule. And now if I wanted to use that color elsewhere within a text box or some other, like within a table maybe or something like that, then I could use that rule. I could invoke it on different tags, again using a class attribute. Okay, so now how about external CSS? Okay, so how do I create it? First of all, you need to do a couple of things. You need to get your rules and put them in a separate file. So I'm going to create a file in Notepad, and I'm going to do a save as. I'm going to target on the desktop that Kuntz web folder again, and I'm going to name this CSS rules SU 2015. Okay, so these are CSS rules I'm creating this summer of 2015, and I'm going to give it explicitly a file name extension of .css, and I'm going to save that. And now what I'm going to do is go to the head section here, and I'm going to start with my first class selector and highlight clear down through the closing brace for the last rule and do a Control X, which will cut that from the current file, and I'm going to paste it with a Control V into this file, and I'm going to save again. Okay, so I have this CSS file, CS rules SU 2015.css, and it should be saved right in the same folder as everything else. So if I show desktop and peek in the Kuntz web folder, there's CSS rules, there's the picture that I'll insert here eventually. So going back here, what do I want to do? I want to go ahead and show you how to do external rules, I guess. So I need to find a page. Okay, this will work. No, it will not work. Okay. Thinking. Expression web. Okay, I know where it is. So with Expression Web, I had 2 pages. I'm going to click on this other page. I'm going to go to the code window, and I'm going to find in the head section the link tag and copy it, Control C, because I don't remember all the coding details of this. I know what it does. It's going to link my web page to an external CSS file. Okay, and I'm going to go back to my web page here. If I can find it. Let's see, I'm messing up here. My brain is starting to shut down here. So I'm going to go back here, and in the head section, okay, so I'm going to get rid of the opening and closing style tags too, and in the head section I'm going to put in this link tag, and then I need to be double certain what I've named this thing. Okay, so if I go to Kuntz Web, the file's named CSS Rules 2015. I'm going to right click, choose rename, do a Control C of the highlighted text, go back over here to my link tag, and I want to change this file name to CSSRules.css, and I'm going to save. Never been saved before, so let me look here. Index. I want to name this thing index dot. No, I'm going to name this sitemap.htm. Okay, sorry about the fumbling around here. Okay, so looks good. I will save as and change it from what it's attempting to name it to sitemap dot HTM. I'll change that to HTM, and I'm going to do a save. Okay, and if I go back to design window, it's still not working right. What's going on here? It should. I have a link to CSSRules.css. And body has a back color, and this has head style. If I go over here and look in Kuntz Web, here's my CS. I think I know what the problem is. Here's my CSS rules. All that looks good. Let me try saving the web page here. So I'm going to do an edit, save as. Let's see, not edit, file save as. I'm going to save this on the desktop. On the desktop under Kuntz Web. And this is my sitemap page, so I'm going to save it there. Still not working. Okay. HTML, title, image. It has a absolute file path. Okay. So these things are deadly. I was going to talk about absolute and relative file paths. Okay. Actually, this is a relative file path, but it's the wrong file path. So let me change this ever so slightly and name this now not ... / which means go up one level, not ... / again, which means goes up one more level, and then start down the path of documents, my websites, all that junk. That's some sort of Microsoft default. I want to take that out, and hopefully, there we are. Okay, so it wasn't addressing the file correctly. It was using a relative file path, but it was not pointing to the correct place in the file system. So if I go back over and analyze this code, I replaced what was there previously with just the name of the file, and anytime I use a file name in an href attribute, or I use a file name in an src attribute on an image tag, if all I include is the file name, then the system will look in the folder, the same folder as the page requesting it. And relative to the page that's requesting it, which happens to be sitemap.htm, that file is in the same folder. Therefore, all I need to do is give it the file name. Okay? And you'll see that done differently here in a moment, but this is the way you're going to want to do it for your project. On your project, you want all your files to be in the same folder, because you're going to eventually submit them. It's going to make it a little bit easier as you submit it, if I have you submit them through Moodle. Okay, so if I have you do it through a shared drive, which I believe I went ahead and set up a shared drive. No, I didn't set it up for this class. You guys are going to be submitting through Moodle, so definitely have your HTML file, any file that ends with .htm, any file that ends with .css, your CSS external file, any images, have everything in a single folder. Okay, and you will address those files by just giving the file name. More to say about that here momentarily. Okay, but you're looking at a relative file address. Okay, now I have set a link to that external file. Okay, so in the head section I use a link. I use a link tag, and the href attribute points to the file where the rules are stored, and you're going to want to code it just like that. If you name your file with the rules in it differently, you'll have to then change what I have highlighted so that it reflects the actual file name in the file system. Okay, and then I call up the rules the same way I called up rules when I used internal CSS. Just give the name of the rule, give the class selector name, and that will invoke the rule and apply it to whatever scope is specified. In this case, it's going to apply back color to the entire body, and in this case, it's going to apply head style 1 to this paragraph. Okay, so if I have another paragraph and I reference head style 2, it would then apply a different rule to yet a different paragraph. All right, hopefully that makes sense. And I want to go back to here and make sure I have I'm knocking everything down. Okay, so we have looked at the graphics tools, and we've looked at an HTML CSS code generator, and you see how CSS rules work, and you see how they can be applied 3 different ways, really at 3 different scopes. And by putting them in an external file, creating external rules, then if I want to use those rules in another page, hey, they work equally well. So I can write the rules once, I can store the rules in one place, and I can link to that one place, sort of like a library. I can link to that that one file with any number of pages, and any page that links to the .css file can use the rules. And if I ever need to change a rule, then I only need to change it one time in one place. I don't have to go to every page where the rules applied and make some kind of change. That would be the case if I were using internal CSS or inline CSS. So I'm really a big fan of external CSS. Much easier to create a kind of an extensive library of rules, number one. So over time, I can create a lot of different rules and then reuse those rules at any point in time in the future. And if I ever need to make a change, it's a change in one central location. All right, I think I have beat that to death, okay? And I'm going to talk a little bit more about relative file paths, but now let me go in here and talk a little bit about specifically CSS, okay? So if I go to, I have to remember where I have all this stuff. If I go to this web page, all right, I've demonstrated the steps that you need to go through in order to create and apply CSS. So first thing you're going to want to do is consider your document window and decide what you want the layout to be, because I can control where things get put on the document window through CSS. Normally with HTML, whatever you specify in the first line, say that's an image tag, it will do that. Then what you specify in the next line, say it's a heading tag, it'll do that. And the appearance on the document window would be, under those circumstances, I have a picture above text. With CSS, the order in which you do things in HTML doesn't necessarily correspond with where things get placed on the form. I can specify very precise locations, okay? I can give locations on the form. So I have a top attribute, and that would be the Y value of the underlying document at Y value 0. So this image area is going to begin in the topmost portion of the document, the very top. And within it there's going to be some padding, so there's going to be like a margin of 20 pixels around the area, and it's going to have a width of 20 pixels. Okay, so in this image area I've defined the top width, and I didn't have to specify a height because why? Because I don't know. The image area, I probably should have put a height attribute in there too. I'm not sure how I'm getting by with it. Might know how it's doing. It may be because of the top position here. So by default, since there's nothing else, it's just going to consume space starting at Y value 0, clear down to the last pixel before this place starts, so that would be clear down to Y value 339. Okay, and so I'm using some height attributes and width attributes in here. You can look at the details of it, but I'm defining where these things go. And I drew on a form just a rough sketch of how I wanted it. Then I figured out the precise values of the height and width and so forth, and coded that. And over here did the same kind of thing, and I was able to divide my document window into 3 very distinct areas. And you'll notice that I assign background color and foreground color and a number of other formatting characteristics to those areas. That's part of that text area rule right there. If I invoke the text area rule, I'm going to get all these things. And you'll notice down here I have a missing closing brace, so it's a little sloppy when I copied some of this stuff. And I think somehow I've missed a height attribute here, but I'm not going to get terribly concerned about that right now. Okay, so I make a sketch. I determine the layout on the document window. I make a sketch of the page, and then I figure out the content. Okay, so put a bunch of junk in here, and I would do that with just the HTML. Then wherever I want that content to reside, I wrap it up with div tags, and we're going to take a look at how this page actually works by going back to Expression Web and looking at this. I'm going to look at Design View. Here's that actual page. I believe that's the actual page. It has a image area, it has a navigation bar, and it has an area over here where I can develop the text and really the content. I might call this the content area. So what does the code look like here? I'm going to right click and choose. I'm going to right click, right click, right click. I'll get it right. I'm using a touchpad. I'm going to right click. Okay, I won't right click because I'm in Expression Web, excuse me. I'm going to click on the code window and take a look at it. Alright, so I start out with a doc type tag which tells the browser that I'm using HTML5 coding standards. And I have my opening HTML tag, so there begins my page through there where my page ends. I have a head section with a link tag which allows me to link to those external CSS rules. I have within the body then a div tag. Now what does a div tag do? A div tag allows you to logically group things. So if I have several lines of HTML that I want influenced by a particular rule, then I would take all those lines that need to be influenced by that same rule and start an opening div tag, put the call to the rule, using the class attribute, make a call to the rule, and then go ahead and put in HTML line after HTML line that I want that rule applied to, and then finally a closing div. So a div's just like a wrapper around a logically group of HTML that's logically related, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So you can use these kind of freely. They're logical groupings though, and you can invoke the class attribute through a div tag. Alright, so I have something here that is being assigned to the image area. That something is a picture, and notice the way that's coded. Its source attribute is pics/chuck.jpg. Now, in order for that to be valid, in the folder where I have my web page, I would need to have a nested folder called pics, and that would say open the pics folder from where my current web page is. So if my web page is here, then it would have to first open a folder called pics. There'd have to be a folder called pics down here, and within that pics folder I would have to have this JPEG file, chuck.jpg. So imagine, if you will, there is a folder down here that is named, hold on a minute, pics, and if in that pics folder I had a file, a graphics file, chuck.jpg, picture, right, then from my current page it would have to open this folder. So it starts out pics slash, and within the pics folder there would have to be a file, chuck.jpg, and that's the file that would be imported. And I can carry on that file path as many branches as I want to go. So here I just go down one branch, but if I had the picture file stored in a folder called X, which was nested in pics, then I would have to say pics/x/chuck.jpg. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Alright, I've beaten this thing. No, I haven't beaten it to death. Okay, let me now beat it to death. So, one last thing to be said about this. Alright, that is a relative file path because the file path is always determined relative to the page that's requesting it. If I were to put in something like C:\/ this and that, then I would have an absolute file path. I would be describing where that file resides relative to the root directory of my file system. And that typically is a very bad thing to do in a web page, because typically you will create all your pages, you'll have them organized within the folder structure your way you want them, you'll test them on your development machine, and if everything works right, you'll take the entire folder and you'll put the entire folder, FTP it to wherever the web pages are being hosted. So when you're done, you're going to move all your pictures to another computer, and unless that other computer has a file system exactly like the file system on your development computer, absolute paths will break. Think about it. So avoid absolute paths. All right, now I can safely say that I have put that thing to rest. I think I can safely say I have put that to rest. We're getting pretty close to putting this to rest. Okay, cascading style sheets probably have put that to rest. All right, so a little bit more on HTML and CSS now. Again, we're looking at all my rules, rule after rule being in a file called ex1style.css, and since there's a hyperlink reference through this link tag, then I can use the class selector names the same way that I would use them if they were internal CSS rules. Okay, I think that's clear enough. All right, one of the last things I want to do here is insert that image into a new page. So here's my sitemap page, and I'm going to come down here a little bit, and I'm going to center, and I'm going to insert the graphics file. So insert picture from file, and I'm going to go over here to, let's see, the desktop. Messed up, wrong place. I go to the desktop, the Kuntz web folder, and here's my .jpg file. Okay, it's in the same folder as the web page that's requesting it. You don't see that because it's filtering for .jpg file type, filtering for .bmp, dib, and a bunch of different file types, but not HTML or HTML. So I find the graphics file, I double click on it. It wants to build an image tag, and it needs an alt attribute to be compliant, and I'm just going to say sitemap and say OK to that. And I've just inserted that sitemap. Now, if I had used a PNG file, I could have inserted this in a transparent way, and I wouldn't be seeing any of this white space. So you can play around with that if you want. There's a couple of things you have to do. You have to change the property, I think, on the picture to transparent, I believe. Haven't done this, I've only read about it. You can read about it. How's that? You Google for how to insert a picture file, a PNG file, a .png file, with a transparent background, so that the background becomes the same as the background color of the web page itself. So had I used a PNG file, had I set things up properly, I could have gotten this thing to insert without that white color in the background, but I'm not terribly worried about it. So moving on. All right, so I've just now inserted this picture, and where is this? I'm going to click on the picture, bring it into focus. You can see the sizing handles around the edge. I'm going to click on code, and I'm going to look, and it has created the image tag with an alt attribute, and it has the source attribute, which is the file name I'm linking to, or I'm sorry, the file name I'm importing DIAG website, that's JPG, and it puts a width attribute and a height attribute in. You could change those if you wanted to, but I don't really want to discuss that right now. But you could change those proportionally, divide both numbers by 2, for instance, and you would insert a diagram that's half the size but still of the same proportion. Okay, I think that's everything I need to show you about inserting the image. Now once the image is in there, I'm going to go ahead and save, and what I'd like to do is transform this into a website or into a image map, and I may have shown you how to do this on a previous video, and if I did, you can skip this portion of the video, or I'm sure my lectures are very exciting and stimulating, so you may want to listen to it anyway. Alright, so what do I need to do? I need to get the picture toolbar on here so I can use the tools that are needed for the image map, and to do that I'm going to go to the View pull-down menu and choose Toolbars and Pictures toolbar, not to be confused with Drawing or anything. Pictures toolbar, and when that happens it docks another toolbar up here that seems to be completely inactive, but if I click on the picture it lights up, and important to me are these 3 tools that are used in creating an image map. If what I want to do is trace a portion of the picture in order to create a hyperlink on just a small portion of the picture, if what I'm tracing is predominantly rectangular, I would use the rectangular hotspot tool, and that's what I would use in this case. If what I'm wanting to create the hotspot area on is primarily circular or elliptical, then I would use the circular hotspot tool. And if it's near regular shape, like the state of Indiana on a map or something, then I'd use a polygonal tool, and that'll allow me to draw something where I can connect a whole series of line segments and then close it off into one unit. Okay, but I'll demonstrate this and you can play around with the other. I choose the tool, and I am going to put a hyperlink right here. Okay. Now as soon as I release, it wants to know, where do you want to hyperlink to? I don't have that page done yet. So I'm going to call that what do I want to make it? Resume.htm, or maybe just how about resume PDF? We'll make this a PDF file. Okay. So it'll be easier, I think, with a PDF. Be much easier with a PDF file. All right. So here we go. If I really had thought this through correctly, I should have, before I started creating this image map, I should have gone off, showed you how to use the resume template in Word, how to save this PDF file. We're going to pretend I've done that, and there's a file called resume.pdf, and I'm going to say OK to that. So in the code, it is going to create an area link, and it's going to reference a file called resume.pdf. Okay, and that will have to be created now. So let me digress here a little bit. Going over to Microsoft Word, and I'm going to go to File, New, and choose Resume. Now there are lots of resumes you can get online and download, okay, or you can use this one right here. So I'm going to go ahead and use this default one, say create. So they'll have resume templates that are specific to different occupations. Apparently whenever I installed Microsoft Word, I gave it my name. So I'm going to come down here, I'm going to change address, city, state, zip to 4005 East 900 North Alexandria, Indiana And it really helps if you don't misspell words on your resume. Okay, pretend I put in my telephone number, my email address. Pretend I summarized my career objective here. Pretend that I put in a listing of my computer skills. Okay, so always make sure. I would prefer, and they kind of do it this way, languages, software. I'm not so sure for a computer science major. I would probably change that to platforms instead of software. Okay, and well, maybe programming languages and database management systems, and then change this to platforms where you list experience you've had with different operating systems. So your call on how you do that, but pretend I put in my work experience, listing my jobs and so forth in reverse chronological order, and I put in my educational stuff there, whatever they call for, just plug it in, and at some point you will save, doing a save as, and you will browse the desktop folder where everything is stored. Okay, so here's Kuntz Web. Open that, and then filter for file type. You have web page filtered, and single web page. Single web page creates a monster. I think may only even be viewable in Internet Explorer. I'd stay away from that. Web page filtered will provide the purest form of HTML, but it doesn't render the Word document as cleanly. And web page will render the Word document as probably the most accurately, but it also requires that you keep an accompanying folder with that web page, which will be a bit problematic for us. And another option here is to create a PDF. I do believe. I'm counting on that. There's PDF. So I'm going to change it to PDF. And I'm going to just optimize it for standard publishing. Choose Save. It's going to target that Kuntz Web folder. And now that's the way it looks. I get a really nice rendering of that. Okay, I'm going to close this up, close everything up here. This is my Word document. If I were you, I would save mine, but I'm not going to for demonstration purposes. Okay, now if you recall, I colored that orange because we were going to create this page using some weird means, namely Microsoft Word saving as a PDF file format. And now it's time to link to that page. So let me go back here. And where I would like to set up that link, wrong page. Where I would like to set up that link would be right in here. So I'm going to edit this. Okay. So I'm going to add another link. All right. So wait a minute. I'm losing my train of thought. That's not what I want to do. We go back to my sitemap page. Sorry. On this page, I want to create the link on this part of the image. So I'm going to make sure my image is highlighted. I'm going to make sure my drawing tool is selected. I'd already done that. I'm losing it. May have to go here and edit this, or everybody's going to think I'm totally forgetful. So I'm going to cancel this. I already had that set up, if you recall, to hyperlink to resume.pdf. So that's already done. Let me save it, close this up, and let's go back to the folder where everything is and go to the sitemap page, right click, open with some browser. I'll choose Google Chrome, and there's my page looking the way I expect it. No hyperlink, no hyperlink. Move over here. This area within, the rectangle is a hyperlink, and if I click, page cannot be found. All right, so it wants KuntzWeb resume.pdf. What did I do wrong? Close that up. Go back here. I didn't save that PDF file in the correct place, apparently. So let me go to Microsoft Word. Shoot. Where is this thing? How do I find it? Okay. Well, that PDF page should have been saved here, and I wasn't paying attention. So real quickly, rather than spend time trying to find it, I'll go over here to Microsoft Word, create a new resume, and I'm going to create, and then be very careful this time, do a save as. I'm going to target my desktop KuntzWeb folder. I'm going to attempt to save this as resume and in a PDF file type. So I got resume PDF. It's showing up here. Okay. Oh, okay. It was named Chuck Kuntz PDF before. Now it's going to be named resume.pdf. We're good now. So I'll save this and close up Microsoft Word without saving. Go back to this folder, and let's see. I want to go to here and right click and open with Google Chrome and attempt to link. Okay, so as I mouse over down the bottom left corner, it's showing me in the status line that it's going to link to resume.pdf, and there it is. Okay, and I can enlarge the size. So I can hyperlink to PDF files as easily as I can hyperlink to HTML files. And in order to get a really good rendering of that original Word document, if I save it as PDF, there's only one file involved. So I not only get a good representation of that original Word document, but I also don't have the baggage of having to create an additional folder and so forth. And PDF file format's very web compatible. Okay, let's see what else I got to show you. We've seen this. I think we've seen everything. So for your project, one last time, we'll go over the specifications one last time. It's due on July 6th. You're going to create 7 web pages. Didn't quite tell you everything. And I want every web page that's in blue to use 3 common CSS rules. Okay? So if you have, I don't care how many rules you apply, but there have to be 3 that are common to all the pages. So if I've got a rule called heading 1, I've got another rule called back color, and I've got another rule called location or something like that, then I need to apply those 3 rules here, and apply them here, and apply them here. And each one of these pages then are going to have something in their formatting that make them all look very similar. So if they're using 3 rules, that 3 rule similarity should be reflected in all these pages. And hopefully that is everything. I don't care what the rules are, just make sure that you have 3 rules that are being applied commonly to all these pages. Make sure that the hyperlinks all work, that my index page provides a link here, here, and here. My About Me page provides a link here, here, and here. Eventually, we will be developing web pages that are going to be called up through this JavaScript page. So it's going to, if we do 5 JavaScript programs, then there's going to be 5 pages that it will link to. But this is the first iteration, okay? And so we'll continue to develop this. And then your sitemap is going to be what I demonstrated, a picture of just this diagram, and you're going to create a hotspot on each one of these guys, except the sitemap page itself. It would be kind of ridiculous to have it linked to itself. But if I click on any of these links, I should be 1 click away from any page in my website if I'm on this sitemap page. Good luck, and again, it will be due July 6th.